It's Sunday, July 19th, 2026. You wake up, you check your phone, pour your coffee, and the headlines just feel entirely massive right now.
Yeah, they really do. It's almost too much to process all at once.
Exactly, like almost too massive to grasp. We are looking at this giant wall of global news, foreign policy crises, billion-dollar tech shifts, unprecedented weather events.
And the instinct is to just put the phone down,
Right.
to look away.
Oh, absolutely. You want to put it down, but you kind of can't, because today we aren't talking about abstract events happening, over there. We are talking about consequence arriving right at your front door.
Right, it's highly localized now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are dedicating this deep dive to unpacking exactly how, say, a drone strike in the Middle East, a corporate tech negotiation, and a stalled weather pattern are actively showing up in your utility bills or your daily commute and the decisions being made at your local town hall. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the defining characteristic of everything we are looking at today is a profound, almost aggressive interconnectedness.
Aggressive interconnectedness. I like that.
Yeah, because the boundaries we used to draw between international relations and, say, local zoning laws, they simply do not exist anymore.
Not at all.
Right. A military escalation on the other side of the planet, a server farm being proposed in a neighboring county, a localized weather anomaly. They are all essentially functioning as gears in the exact same global machine.
Wow.
We are watching these massive macro trends filter down to the absolute micro level of just daily survival.
And there is probably no better place to start than the crisis that is literally hitting your wallet the hardest right now. Let's talk about the escalating U.S.-Iran conflict in the Gulf.
It's an incredibly volatile situation.
It is. We are looking at a situation that has gone from tense to, honestly, genuinely tragic. There have been the deaths of 2 American service members, with a 3rd missing following an Iranian missile and drone attack in Jordan.
And that's a significant escalation.
Yeah, and in response, the U.S. has launched retaliatory strikes explicitly targeting Iranian logistics, surveillance, and weapons storage. So if we look at the broader conflict to date, we are now looking at 16 U.S. service members killed and over 420 wounded.
It has become this sort of self-reinforcing cycle. Iran has suspended its commitments under the interim agreement.
Which is a big deal.
Massive. That removes a critical diplomatic reference point, effectively taking the guardrails entirely off. Meanwhile, the U.S. is trying to manage an incredibly wide mission.
Because they aren't just defending regional bases anymore, right?
Exactly. They are attempting to enforce a naval blockade, protect commercial shipping, and actively strike targets inside Iran itself. The geographical spread is just massive.
It's huge.
And the attack in Jordan is a grim indicator that casualties can happen far from the Strait of Hormuz, which, has historically been the focal point of these tensions.
It really feels like pulling a single loose thread on a sweater. The U.S. strikes targets in the Gulf, and suddenly the shipping insurance markets in London unravel, which, spikes the price of a tomato in a grocery store in Ohio.
It's a direct line.
Right. So with operations widening so dramatically from enforcing blockades to inside Iran, it's like a dangerous game of chess where neither player actually knows what winning looks like. So how does this lack of a clearly defined political end state actually play out in the financial markets?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the financial markets fundamentally reject ambiguity. They price it in as risk.
And risk means money.
Exactly. And when that ambiguity involves the Strait of Hormuz, the risk premium just skyrockets. We have to remember that about 1/5 of the entire world's global oil and liquefied natural gas, or LNG, flows through that specific narrow waterway.
1/5? That's crazy.
Right. And because the shipping routes are severely restricted by the military activity right now, we are seeing a massive geopolitical premium attached to oil.
Let's break that term down for a second, because when you say a geopolitical premium, you mean the price is artificially inflated just out of pure fear that the supply chain might break, like even if there's technically enough oil in the ground today.
That is exactly the mechanism. Buyers are paying extra for the security of securing the barrels they need right now.
Just in case.
Just in case. So Brent crude, which is the major global benchmark price for oil, is sitting near $88 a barrel. And that abstract barrel price translates directly to the pump you visit.
Right, which we are all feeling.
The national average for gas is hovering around $3.84 a gallon. That is 22% higher than this time last year.
And if you look at the market forecast, we are literally staring down the barrel of $4 a gallon gas if these shipments stay restricted.
And a sustained move above $4 a gallon fundamentally alters the domestic economy. It dampens consumer sentiment, increases political pressure on incumbents, and critically, it spikes diesel costs.
Because diesel is what moves freight.
Precisely. When diesel goes up, it ripples through the prices of agriculture, manufacturing, literally everything you buy. But it's not just an American problem.
Oh, right.
Asian countries are highly exposed to reduced Gulf oil and LNG deliveries. Bangladesh has already seen scheduled deliveries reduced, forcing them to ration power.
Wow.
Furthermore, the conflict is actively threatening basic civilian survival infrastructure in the Middle East. Desalination plants and energy grids in Kuwait have been damaged.
Wait, and desalination requires an immense amount of energy, so a hit to the power grid is literally a hit to the drinking water supply.
Exactly. It's a cascading failure. And we also see Saudi Arabia issuing alerts around Yanbu. Yanbu is their principal Red Sea port, which they specifically use to bypass the restricted Gulf shipping lanes.
Oh, so it's their backup plan.
Yes. When alerts are issued there, it signals that even the backup plans are under threat. It demonstrates how rapidly military escalation degrades the most fundamental systems that keep a society functioning.
Man, it's a perfect storm of energy anxiety. And because of that anxiety, because imported oil and gas are so volatile and expensive right now, we are seeing a massive pivot.
A huge pivot.
The European Union is actually considering doubling electricity's share of their overall energy consumption by 2040. They just won off the fossil fuel roller coaster.
Which makes sense.
It does. And here's where it gets really interesting. There is a massive, incredibly well-funded new competitor fighting the general public for that exact same electricity. And that competitor is artificial intelligence.
The scale of the public backlash against this is something the tech industry completely underestimated.
Total.
We have moved entirely out of the realm of hypothetical debates about, whether AI will take our jobs or become sentient. We are firmly in the gritty reality of local zoning boards and utility grids.
Yes.
Over this past weekend, there were coordinated protests across at least 125 different locations nationwide against the construction of large data centers.
125 locations. And what stands out to you about who is actually showing up to these protests? Because just looking at the demographics, you have conservative, liberal, rural, and suburban communities all locking arms.
It's a very unique coalition.
Very. They are united by concerns over water usage, electricity demand, land use, and these closed-door approval processes that just shut the public out entirely.
Right.
The sources noted only 14% of Americans actually want a data center near their home. New York has even placed a moratorium on data centers requiring at least 50 megawatts.
Before we go further, can you help us visualize 50 megawatts?
Yeah, to put 50 megawatts in perspective, that is roughly the continuous power needed to supply 50,000 typical homes.
50,000 homes.
So a single facility is competing with a small city for power. And to cool those servers, they require millions of gallons of water. It forces a complete reckoning with how we build infrastructure in this country.
Because the old way isn't working. Not at all. For a long time, the model was for tech companies to secure tax incentives and utility commitments quietly. They would use non-disclosure agreements with local officials, getting everything signed before the community ever understood the physical scale of the project.
Right. They just expected towns to roll out the red carpet for the promise of, tech jobs, even if a data center actually employs very few people once it's built.
That model is no longer viable. The public is demanding transparency on power and water contracts, especially in regions facing drought or aging municipal systems.
Because they don't want to foot the bill.
Exactly. They want absolute assurance that residential customers aren't going to see their utility rates hiked to quietly subsidize corporate computing loads.
But wait, I have to point out the wild contradiction here. Americans are hopelessly addicted to AI-powered services. We use it for our emails, our calendars, our healthcare diagnostics, literally everything.
Every single day.
Yes. Yet we're actively protesting the massive industrial facilities required to run them. It's like demanding next-day delivery on all your online shopping, but passing local laws banning delivery trucks from driving through your town.
It's a huge disconnect.
You can't have both. And looking at the financial markets, Apple just surpassed NVIDIA as the world's most valuable publicly traded company. So I have to ask, does that mean investors finally realize you can't just build infrastructure forever if communities won't let you plug it in?
It reflects a profound realization about where the bottleneck actually is right now. NVIDIA remains absolutely essential to AI computing. Their hardware is the foundational bedrock.
Sure.
but their valuation is heavily exposed to capital expenditures, the physical building of these massive facilities by what we call hyperscalers.
When you say hyperscalers, you're talking about the massive tech giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google who build these football field-sized server farms, right?
Correct. The companies operating cloud infrastructure on a global scale. So Apple surpassing NVIDIA reflects a market rotation toward companies that can actually distribute and monetize AI to the consumer without having to match the astronomical and increasingly politically difficult physical infrastructure spending of those hyperscalers.
Oh, I see.
The market is essentially asking, can a company make money on AI without having to zone, permit, and build a 50-megawatt facility that the locals will just protest?
And we are seeing these hyperscalers get creative, maybe even a little desperate, to avoid building new physical infrastructure. Like Meta is reportedly in negotiations to lease computing capacity from Anthropic.
Which is fascinating.
Right. They are direct competitors in the AI space, but they are sharing the actual physical servers because getting the power and permits for new infrastructure is becoming such an insurmountable bottleneck.
The AI market is maturing very rapidly. Developing the AI models, building the chips, managing the cloud capacity, and handling consumer distribution, these are fracturing into separate, distinct businesses.
That makes a lot of sense.
And zooming out from the corporate level to the geopolitical level, we're seeing this exact same infrastructure split the globe into ideological blocks.
Oh, this is the really wild part.
Washington is leading a coalition called Pax Silica, which emphasizes trusted private sector leadership and heavily guarded access to advanced American technology. On the other side, China has formed the World AI Cooperation Organization with 29 countries, framing open source AI as a free public resource for the developing world.
That is a massive strategic divergence. Washington is creating advanced AI like weapons-grade uranium, guarding the supply chain to maintain a technological edge. But China is taking the exact opposite approach, using open-source AI access to build long-term political influence across developing nations by just giving away the foundational tools.
It is a fascinating proxy war.
It really is. But let's bring it back to the physical reality on the ground. Because it isn't just AI data centers maxing out our power grids. What happens when the grid is attacked by something completely out of our control?
Like the weather.
Exactly, like the weather stalling out over half the continent. Extreme weather is simultaneously destroying the infrastructure we already have while demanding massive emergency resources. We are currently sitting in what meteorologists call a compound national event.
Yeah, the atmospheric patterns have completely stalled, creating this pressure cooker of simultaneous crises. In the American West, there are currently 68 large wildfires burning across 15 states.
68.
Requiring over 17,000 personnel deployed to fight them. And north of the border in Canada, there are over 100 fires classified as completely out of control.
It's just staggering.
And because the weather patterns are stationary, all that smoke isn't dissipating over the ocean. It is blanketing the continent. Right now, more than 100 million Americans are facing active air quality alerts.
And at the exact same time, Texas is recovering from extraordinary historic flooding.
Simultaneously, yes.
And the Texas flooding is a terrifying race against the clock. I mean, when a city floods, the water isn't just rainwater. It becomes this toxic cocktail of breached sewage systems, leaked fuel from submerged cars, and agricultural chemicals washed in from the outskirts.
Exactly.
Plus, mold can begin developing within 24 to 48 hours in that kind of heat. Which brings us to a really alarming trend mentioned in the health data, environmental medicine.
Right, so environmental medicine is a complete paradigm shift in healthcare. It operates on the principle that a patient's health is largely determined long before they ever set foot in a clinic.
Right, by their environment.
It is determined by the quality of their air, the safety of their water, the structural integrity of their housing, and the reliability of their electricity to run medical devices or, air conditioning.
So true.
When 100 million people are exposed to wildfire smoke for weeks on end, standard medical advice changes. You can't just tell people to stay indoors anymore.
Because the smoke gets inside anyway.
Exactly. We have to rely on well-fitted N95 or P100 respirators and heavy-duty portable HEPA filters because fine particulate matter, the microscopic soot from these fires, infiltrates homes and lingers in the air even when the skies outside look deceptively blue.
And that particulate matter, it bypasses your body's normal defenses, right? It goes straight into the bloodstream.
It does. It causes systemic inflammation. It leads to persistent coughing, chronic fatigue, and measurable difficulty concentrating even in young, healthy adults, let alone vulnerable populations like the elderly or those with asthma.
But wait, here's where the mechanics of how we solve this get wild. We are dealing with these elemental, ancient terrestrial forces, fire, smoke, flood, and to manage them, we are having to look to the stars.
Space technology.
Yes. A company in India's private space sector called Skyroot Aerospace just successfully launched the Vikram 1 rocket. They placed payloads into low Earth orbit in about 15 minutes.
Which is incredibly fast.
And they did it using 3D printed engine components. But connect those dots for me. How does a 3D printed rocket launching from India actually help someone whose home is flooding in Texas or someone trying to breathe in California?
This raises an important question about the fundamental utility of commercial spaceflight. It is really easy to view space as just exploration or, frankly, vanity projects for billionaires.
Right.
But the real value here is Earth observation. By using 3D printed components, companies like Skyroot dramatically reduce the weight of the rocket and the time it takes to manufacture it. That drives the cost per kilogram to orbit down significantly.
Cheaper launches.
Yes. Cheaper, more frequent access to space means we can launch massive constellations of small, inexpensive satellites.
So instead of $1 billion government satellite taking a picture every 24 hours, you have hundreds of cheap commercial satellites giving you a live feed.
Exactly the mechanism. We need those specific low Earth orbit satellites to track the shifting fire boundaries in real time, to monitor the soil moisture in drought zones, to predict the exact atmospheric movement of the smoke plumes, and to assess the cresting river levels in places like Texas.
I just marvel at the contrast here. We are relying on cutting-edge, 3D printed space rockets orbiting the Earth just to tell a construction manager in Chicago if it's safe for his crew to breathe the air outside, or to tell a town in Texas if their evacuation routes are still above water.
It means we have fully entered an era of operational space. Space is no longer a distant frontier. Orbital capability matters today because satellite data now dictates ordinary daily decisions on Earth.
Like civic infrastructure.
Precisely. Does this school district need to upgrade its indoor filtration system? Do we route a supply chain around a forecasted floodplain? Space is now a critical piece of localized civic infrastructure, just as essential as a water treatment plant or a municipal power grid.
So we have foreign wars dictating our gas prices, AI companies fighting our neighborhoods for electricity, and space rockets managing our local weather. I think you and I, and honestly everyone listening, desperately needs a cultural pause.
A break would be nice.
And thankfully, today brings exactly that. But as we'll see, even sports can't escape the weather. Today is the 2026 World Cup final. Argentina is meeting Spain in New Jersey for the championship.
It is a phenomenal matchup, primarily because it represents a visceral clash of generations and tactical philosophies.
The storylines are incredible.
They are. You have Argentina bringing 17 members of their 2022 championship squad. That includes Lionel Messi, who has another chance to add to an already unprecedented legendary career.
Just wild that he's still doing it.
They possess the muscle memory of navigating the absolute highest pressure moments on the global stage. And on the other side, you have Spain. They are entering this final unbeaten in 37 matches, featuring a dynamic younger generation that represents a highly anticipated transfer of football leadership to a new era.
And the context leading up to this final has been wild too. England just claimed third place in a historic 6-4 victory over France. 10 goals. It was the highest scoring World Cup game since 1982.
An incredible game.
Yeah. And Kylian Mbappe finished the tournament with 10 goals, bringing his career World Cup total to 22. And Didier Deschamps' 14-year run as France's coach just came to an end. It really feels like a generational transition is happening right in front of us.
It absolutely does.
But what I find so interesting about today's final in New Jersey is how the environment itself is going to act as the ultimate wild card.
The environmental conditions in New Jersey are forecast to be incredibly challenging. They are expecting extreme heat, high humidity, the potential for heavy rain, and tying right back to our earlier discussion, residual smoke from the western wildfires affecting the air quality in the stadium.
In New Jersey.
Right. Add to that the specific grass playing surface laid over the turf, and you have external physical factors that heavily dictate tactical execution.
And think about the contrast in style. Spain wants to play this smooth, highly controlled, possession-based game. They want a predictable, engineered system, kind of like a pristine AI data center, right? They want everything perfectly optimized.
Exactly.
But when you have 90% humidity and heavy legs, that precision starts to fail. Argentina, on the other hand, is built for the grind. They are totally comfortable when the match becomes tactical, physical, emotional, chaotic. They thrive in the messy reality of the moment. So how do you see this match reflecting that broader theme we've been tracking all day?
It mirrors the structural transitions we are seeing across the entire global economy. Just as we are transitioning from an era of unquestioned tech expansion to one of fraught community negotiation, or from reliance on vulnerable maritime shipping lanes to decentralized energy grids, football is watching one established system face off against an emerging one.
A passing of the torch, sort of?
Yeah. The team that ultimately lifts the trophy will likely be the one that can best adapt its system to the harsh, unpredictable physical reality of the environment they're actually playing in. You can have the most beautiful, mathematically controlled strategy in the world, but if the humidity is stifling and there's smoke in your lungs, the team that embraces the friction often wins.
Embrace the friction. I love that.
Mm.
Because there is plenty of friction to go around today, no matter where you look.
To synthesize what we've unpacked today, across all these disparate events, we have definitively entered the era of the stakeholder.
The era of the stakeholder.
Yes, the days of isolated top-down decision-making are just over. Corporate developers can't just negotiate with friendly regulators and private investors anymore. They have to negotiate with the community down the street and the utility customers paying the bills. Nations connected to major powers are finding that neutrality is nearly impossible when the fundamental infrastructure they rely on, like shipping lanes, is under attack. And even a football team attempting to pass the torch to a new generation has to negotiate with the realities of the climate. Consequence is no longer something abstract that happens somewhere else. It is arriving right at our front doors.
It really is. Thank you for walking through the mechanics of all this with me today.
It was a pleasure.
And to you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final fascinating reality from the sources to chew on. Amidst all this talk of AI infrastructure and global conflict, the data highlighted a very specific new shift in the workplace. Because deepfake fraud has become so incredibly sophisticated, major businesses are now making what they call separate channel verification a routine, mandatory control for payments and sensitive instructions.
It's wild to think about.
It is. You literally can't trust the video call or the voice memo from your boss anymore. You have to verify it on a completely different platform. And it made me realize something profound. As autonomous AI takes over routine workflows and systems, the most valuable career skill won't just be writing code or managing spreadsheets. It will be accountable implementation, being the human who can explain what the machine did, why it did it, and verify that it's actually real. In a world of deepfakes and data center wars, the ultimate premium is on human truth. Keep an eye out for it.